Before there were prisons, there were places men built to make others beg for death. This is one of them. Rising from the salt marshes of southern France, Aigues-Mortes stands like a wound that never healed. Its towers, once bone white, are stained rust red. Not from weather, not from time, from what happened inside. This is where he ruled, the man history buried, the king they called in whispers, the Butcher of Aigues-Mortes. His name was Charles of Anjou, brother to a saint, architect of a nightmare. This is the story they never taught you. Born in 1227, the youngest son of the King of France. In medieval royal courts, that was not a privilege. It was a sentence. The eldest inherited the kingdom. The second inherited hope. The youngest inherited scraps. His mother, Blanche of Castile, had a favorite. Everyone knew it. Louis. Always Louis. The boy who prayed at dawn, who would one day be declared a saint by the Catholic Church. Charles was the shadow behind that light. He grew up understanding, with cold precision, that greatness would not be handed to him. It had to be taken. While Louis led crusades for God, Charles studied the mechanics of power, how alliances broke, how popes moved armies, how a well-timed betrayal could redraw the map of Europe overnight. Calculating in a way medieval rulers rarely were. 3 moves ahead while everyone else reacted to the last. In 1246, he became Count of Provence through marriage. Not enough. Never enough. Charles looked south toward Sicily. Sicily in the 13th century was one of the most coveted prizes in the known world. Strategically placed at the center of the Mediterranean, wealthy beyond measure, the papacy needed someone capable, hungry, and controllable to remove its current ruler. They chose Charles. In 1266, with papal blessing and 40 years of ambition, he stormed southern Italy. The ruling king died on the field. Charles stepped over the ruins of a dynasty and placed a crown on his own head. He was now King of Sicily, but a crown taken by force must be held by force. He replaced Sicilian nobles with French ones. He imposed taxes designed not just to extract wealth, but to humiliate, reminding the Sicilians at every turn who owned them. Grain, livestock, gold, all funneled northward. Because Sicily was never the destination, it was a platform. Charles wanted Constantinople, the Eastern Mediterranean, nothing less than empire. And the people of Sicily paid for that dream with everything they had. Easter Monday, March 30th, 1282. Palermo, Sicily. 16 years of occupation. 16 years of French soldiers in the streets. French hands in Sicilian pockets. The anger had built so long, it had become something physical. Heavy and electric, like a sky before a storm. That evening, as the Vesper bells rang, French soldiers were present, drinking. A soldier crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. A scuffle, a blade drawn, and the crowd moved, like one creature, like something coiled for years finally releasing. French soldiers were pulled from doorways, cut down in streets. The bells kept ringing, not for prayers, but as a signal spreading church to church across the island. A single wordless message. Now. Rise. Now, Sicilians forced anyone claiming not to be French to pronounce Siciri, a word whose sounds French tongues could not replicate. Those who failed were killed where they stood. By dawn, 2,000 Frenchmen were dead in Palermo alone. Across the island within the week, the number climbed past 4,000. The Sicilian Vespers, one of the most complete uprisings in medieval history. Charles was in France when he heard, and he went very, very still. They say a man reveals his true nature not in how he celebrates victory, but in how he responds to humiliation. Charles's response was not grief, Not rage, something colder, more deliberate, engineering. He wanted to build an architecture of terror so complete that no one would dare rise again. The dungeons of Aigues-Mortes became his workshop. Monks who witnessed what happened inside recorded their accounts in Latin manuscripts that spent centuries buried in church archives. The Iron Cradle, a rocking frame of iron into which prisoners were strapped and set in slow, rhythmic motion. Not violently, that was the point. The human spine, under constant repetitive stress, begins to compress over hours and days. Vertebrae fracture, nerves crush. The pain radiates until the entire body becomes one long, screaming nerve. Some died. Some were released, broken, to walk back to their villages as living warnings. The salt cage was worse. Iron cages suspended above the marshes of Aigues-Mortes. Prisoners locked inside in full exposure to the Camargue wind, which carries salt crystals that settle on skin, in eyes, in every wound. Flesh weeps within hours, breaks down within days. Science confirms what those monks described. Prolonged salt exposure destroys the outermost skin layers, leaving raw nerve endings unprotected. And the marsh birds came for the eyes first. Always the eyes. Charles did not build these things in rage. He refined them. He was a scientist of pain. Throughout his territories, he built a punishment infrastructure designed to send messages to entire populations. A village that sheltered a rebel watched what was done to him, and it remembered. By 1284, Charles had not retaken Sicily. The island remained in rebellion, backed by Peter III of Aragon. But Charles was not finished. In 1285, he called a crusade, not against the Saracens, not for Jerusalem, against Aragon. He secured a papal declaration that Aragon was a legitimate crusading target, a total corruption of everything the crusading movement claimed to represent. A private war of revenge dressed in the robes of God. What followed was erasure. Villages burned, fields salted so nothing would grow for years, water sources poisoned, livestock slaughtered and left to rot. The goal? Make the population suffer so completely they would beg anyone to make it stop. Not the byproduct of war, its explicit purpose. Charles called it justice. He believed it. That is the most disturbing truth. He had built a complete moral framework in which every atrocity was righteous. Every crime had a theological wrapper. He was not a monster who abandoned morality. He was a man who had weaponized it. But the sea does not care about justice. In 1284, Charles's fleet met the Aragonese navy off Naples. It was meant to show French supremacy. Instead, it was a catastrophe. The Aragonese admiral destroyed the French fleet with clinical precision. Charles's own son was captured. The crusade into Aragon collapsed. Armies in unfamiliar terrain, supply lines broken, swept by disease. In January 1285, Charles returned to Aigues-Mortes, 60 years old. 4 decades of constant war behind him, nowhere left to go. The empire had contracted back to this, a fortress above salt marshes, a red-stained tower, a dungeon. He died on January 7th, 1285. The accounts of his final days are fragmented and fearful, but certain details recur across sources. He slept badly. He woke shouting. He refused, in those last weeks, to enter certain rooms in the lower levels of the fortress. Whether he heard sounds rising from those chambers, sounds embedded so deeply in the stone that the walls themselves seemed to breathe, or whether it was his own conscience finally collapsing inward, no one can say. He died alone, in a fortress smelling of salt and iron. No one beside him who mourned rather than waited. No glory, no last words. Just the tide through the marshes, indifferent and eternal. History is not only written in books, sometimes it is written in bone. Archaeologists surveying the marshland surrounding Aigues-Mortes found something beneath the sediment of a former tidal channel, accessible from the fortress by boat. The first grave, then another, then dozens, then hundreds, at least 300 individuals, not buried, deposited. Burial implies acknowledgement of the dead as human. This was disposal. Bodies, placed where tidal action would swallow the evidence. Blunt force trauma. Ligature marks at wrists and ankles. The population included women, children, elderly, people who had not died in battle. Carbon dating, late 13th century. The exact years of Charles of Anjou's reign. 300 people, at minimum, whose deaths were treated as logistical, not carefully hidden, simply put somewhere out of the way. That is not the signature of a crime committed in panic. That is the signature of a system. In Sicily, they still sing about the Vespers, not as tragedy, as victory. The bells of that church still ring on the anniversary. Memory passed, generation to generation, because the people who carried it understood that forgetting was surrender. In Aigues-Mortes, salt still bleeds through the stone, in rust-red streaks no restoration has erased. Tourists walk the ramparts unknowingly in the shadow of towers that once held people in iron cages above the marsh. In monastery archives, his name appears in the margins, in lists of the dead. In letters abbots sent to Rome about what was happening in those dungeons. Letters that received no reply. History crowns its victors. It buries its victims. In that other ledger, kept in archives and marsh sediment, and in the memory of people who refuse to forget, Charles of Anjou is not a king, not a crusader, not the brother of a saint. He is what the people who suffered under him always called him, the Butcher. His cruelty was not madness. That would be a comfort. It was a system, organized, rationalized, institutionalized. The question that should keep you awake is not who he was. It is how many others like him have been quietly rewritten out of the pages we are handed. How many butchers laundered into kings. How many mass graves lie beneath ground we walk over without knowing. We are still finding the bones. If this story unsettled you, good. That unease is the beginning of real understanding. Subscribe. Share this with someone who thinks history is just kings and battles. Because the real history lives in the graves they never showed you. In the songs people refuse to stop singing. In the bones that science pulls back into the light 7 centuries later. Every story we tell here is a debt being repaid. A voice returned to someone who was told their voice did not matter. We are bringing them back, one story at a time. Don't let them be forgotten again.